Hey, friends. Today I want to talk to you about a really concerning report that I saw on the National Council on Aging website. They did a really phenomenal job of breaking down what's happening to different senior programs. And I'm going to be honest with you, the news isn't fantastic. We have a lot we're going to cover today, so I hope you'll stay with me. So basically, what's going on is we're in another showdown for a government shutdown. And I know that feels like old news because we've been here over and over and over again over the last couple of years. But what's going on is Congress has to make all of these big funding decisions. And so there are different bills being proposed, different things being looked at. And NCOA did this really phenomenal job of just lining it up side by side what's going on in the House, what's going on in the Senate, what's going on with what the White House is asking for. And that's going to be what we go over here today. So, before we dive into those details, just a quick reminder that you can always get free Medicare help from our sponsor chapter by calling the number that you see there on screen. Now, the stakes are obviously high, right? Nobody wants a government shutdown. There's all sorts of different complications that happen with that. So they're rushing to try to get these bills out before September 30th. And a couple of days ago, House appropriators advanced what they called the fiscal year 26 Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and Related Agencies Bill. This is one of the bigger funding bills because it covers a lot of different programs. Health and Human Services is pretty vital to the programs that we talk about on this channel, and there's bits and pieces that belong to those other agencies as well. So the bill that the House pushed forward still needs approval from the full House, still needs to go through the Senate, still needs to go through the president, and not everybody agrees on what should be done here. There's a lot of contention between the different pieces of this. And so some programs, everybody seems to mostly agree should retain the same level of funding. Some have funding increases, which is great. Others are being proposed to be completely eliminated. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw the detailed breakdown of the list of what they're proposing to eliminate, it's not good. A lot of it ties into the different videos we've made about different benefits and programs. And I can't even imagine what it would look like if those programs were actually eliminated, but we'll get into that, into those details just in there in just a minute. Like I said before, this information is coming from the NCOA. And we're going to start with some of the good news because I hate bringing you guys bad news. I absolutely hate it. So let's start with what is going to stay the same. The things that everybody seems to agree on should stay, just so that you can stop worrying about these ones in particular. So aging network and support activities, everybody seems to agree that should be kept at the same level of funding. That's what provides training and research and technical help for the agencies that deliver senior services. They're also pretty much keeping congregate nutrition services at the same level of funding. And that's what's going to provide funding for meals served in group settings like senior centers or community halls. That's a critical program that feeds a lot of people. So I'm glad to see that that's not getting cut. Home delivered nutrition services is often better known as Meals on Wheels. It is also safe. Everybody seems to agree that that should stay at the same level. The Nutrition Services Incentive Program, which helps buy locally grown foods for congregate meals, that's also seeming to be continued at the same level of funding, which is great. The Preventative Health Program, the Aging and Disability Resource Centers, those are both safe. The Social Services Block Grant, which helps fund a lot of different programs, is also being maintained. So that's the good news. That's what everybody seems to agree on, right? Now there are some programs that they seem to mostly agree on with a little bit of variation, and we're going to go over those next before we get into the cuts and the increases. Anyway, made logical sense to me. So the State Health Insurance Assistance Program, or SHIP, is being kept at the same level in the House bill that moved forward. The White House is requesting additional money for that. That is another service that provides one-on-one counseling for Medicare. The National Family Caregiver Support Program is mostly being kept the same. The Senate wants to give it more money, but it's not clear if that will actually work. That program provides respite care, training, counseling, a whole bunch of other stuff for people who are caring for relatives. The supportive services and senior centers is mostly being level funded. The House does want to give it $4 million more this year, which could help with more transportation and services like that that are covered underneath that. The Native American Nutrition and Support Services is mostly being kept level, but the House does want to give that a boost as well. So for those just jumping in, I can see we had our numbers go up a little bit. We're going over right now the things that are mostly being agreed to be kept before we dive into those cuts and those increases. So the elder abuse programs are mostly retaining their funding. It looks like there are some suggested changes there, but they're within $1 million. So those are pretty light variances. Lifespan respite care is being kept at $10 million. Senate wants to boost that. So you can see some programs the House wants to boost, sometimes the Senate wants to boost it, but those are pretty low. Now we're going to talk about the things that are honestly a lot more controversial that they definitely don't seem to agree on. And this is where our video gets more depressing, in my opinion. We'll just dive into it so you can see. So like I said, not everyone agrees on what's going on here. I did notice that both the House and the Senate seem to want to protect funding for a lot of these. It seems to be mostly the White House that is proposing to slash or eliminate most of these programs. Another thing to consider as we talk about this, and we'll talk about this in greater detail in a few minutes, is that in some cases, there are programs that Congress has already approved funding for where the White House is withholding that funding already. So there's a lot of back and forth and disagreement on these particular topics. So just getting into it, the ACL Elder Falls Prevention Program is obviously really important. This helps fund those community classes and workshops that help people learn how to reduce their risk of falling as they age. Both Senate and the House want to keep that at the same level of funding, but the White House wants to cut it by the majority of its funding. It wants to drop it from $7.5 million to $2.5 million. The Alzheimer's disease program is also facing a potential cut from the White House of up to half. And that's the program that provides help for families and caregivers for people living with Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm sorry, guys. I hate bringing you this bad news. So then the CDC Elder Falls Prevention Program is another program that helps fund those falling workshops to try to prevent the risk of falling. The White House wants to completely eliminate that. The HUD Aging in Place Home Modification Grants Program, which historically is at about $30 million and provides safety upgrades for like ramps, grab bars, bathroom modifications, the things that help people stay safe in their own homes as they get older. The White House wants to cut that to zero as well. The Chronic Disease Self-Management Education Program. Most people don't know it by its name, but the program helps people who are living with diabetes, arthritis, heart disease, lung disease, other chronic conditions learn pain management techniques, how to manage their medications, how to make healthy choices. The White House wants to slash that to zero as well. Interestingly, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP, you guys know I love LIHEAP. Both the House and the Senate bills, according to NCOA, offer a boost to that program, which means it would get more funding than it usually does. But like we've discussed previously, the White House also wants to eliminate that program entirely as well. So it's not clear how that would work out in this process of negotiation here. Hopefully the House and the Senate will win out on that one, and we'll see LIHEAP not only continue but increase. I know that would bless so many people. I'm hoping that's what we see happen, but like I said, the White House wants to axe that too. So this really bothers me. The Department of Labor's Senior Community Service Employment Program helps people who are over age 55 get part-time paid job training in community service jobs. It's supposed to help people earn a small income while gaining skills so that they can move into permanent jobs. And both the House of Representatives and the White House want to fully eliminate this program. And even the Senate, which apparently wants to keep it, wants to cut that funding by $10 million over the prior year. And NCOA is reporting that the White House is still holding on to $300 million in funds for this program that were supposed to be released in July, and they just haven't been. So tens of thousands of seniors have been furloughed. This program is starting to shut down locally, even though it should still have funding. And the reason this bothers me so much, and maybe you've already guessed this, is we're seeing those changes to the work programs, right? Like we're seeing more of a push for people over the age of 55 to have to work to get SNAP, have to work to get Medicaid. But then they're also cutting the programs that are designed to help those seniors get jobs that would help them meet the requirements for SNAP and Medicaid. So this is absolutely mind-boggling to me that they would choose to cut these programs because their sole purpose is to help people who can't find employment get employment, which is what I thought they wanted when they made the changes to the other programs. And if you guys have been on my channel for a while, you know I try really hard to be impartial and not get emotional here, but this just makes me so angry because we're talking about tens of thousands of seniors who were working, they were getting paid, they were moving toward permanent job placements, and they have now lost those positions because the White House is holding on to this funding. And now this program might go away entirely, and that just simply does not make any sense. Um, and I really, really wish that that was the end of the bad news, but it's not. They also want to slash AmeriCorps Seniors, which again is a volunteer program that also, in a lot of cases, provides a monthly stipend for older adults who want to volunteer. So, people who are working as foster grandparents in schools or senior companions have been able to work through this program, it's a small stipend. It's not a lot of money, but they get some money from it. They're able to give back to the community. These are all things that would have met the work requirements for the new SNAP and Medicaid rules, but now they're cutting that program too. And this just guts me because I remember benefiting from the foster grandparent program when I was in school. I remember reporting on the foster grandparent program when I worked at the newspaper. And it's a fantastic program. Like it is so impactful. And I hate the idea of that being cut because it just is terrible for people on all sides. Like it's terrible for the kids, it's terrible for the seniors. It's just anyway. So the Senate obviously is going to try to continue that, it looks like, with the funding there, but the White House wants to axe it, and the House cut the budget by like a considerable amount, by almost $100 million. So the future of that program is very unclear. They also want to rename it if it continues. The House bill, if it continues at that lower number, they also want to rename it to America First Corps instead of AmeriCorps. But yeah, so there's that. Yeah. Anyway, they also, sorry, every slide here just feels like a gut punch, and I'm so sorry. I hate bringing you guys this kind of news. The commodity supplemental food program that I tell you about that gives monthly food boxes to seniors. I have talked about that program a lot because I love it, and I know so many people who have relied on it for a long time. The House and the Senate both want to increase funding over last year, which would help that program grow and expand and help more people. And of course, the White House wants to completely eliminate it. Now, if you have benefited from that program, or if you've been interested in that program, I did do a video a little while ago about what they want to do instead of this. They want to roll out these Make America Healthy Again boxes, which Doesn't sound bad on the surface until you look at how their trial version of that program went, and then it's very clearly an expensive disaster. I'm not going to recap all of that here because this video has plenty of bad news in and of itself. But if you're interested in learning more about the potential fate of the commodity supplemental food program, I'd recommend that you go check out that other video at the end of this one because there's a lot of information to be had about that as well. Now, they also are looking at the commodity development block grant. Now, there's a lot of different block grants that the government does. And a block grant is basically when the federal government says, okay, we're going to give all this money to the states and we're going to divvy it out based on, I think it's based on state population usually. And they're like, here, you can have this money, you can use it for this list of things, go. And then the states get to decide what's done with it. So the community development block grant is usually used to support housing, infrastructure, and community needs. When I've reported on community development block grants in the past, a lot of times that's going to be for home repairs for seniors, disability modifications, meal programs, things like that. In the House bill, they are proposing to keep that funding as it was before. The Senate wants to cut it down by, what is that, $200 million a year, I think. And the administration wants to drop that number to zero, which is frankly unfathomable. Like I can't even imagine what that would look like. But okay, so that gets us through the bulk of the bad stuff. There are some programs that might increase, and again, these are not solid plans. This is still very contentious. So the Native American Caregiver Support Program is, it looks like it's being carried over at the same rate it was before, but the House wants to bump it up by $2 million and the Senate wants to bump it up by $5 million. This provides help to family members and friends who care for seniors in Native American communities. Oh, I don't know. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. The heading on this slide is wrong. So I guess it's not technically wrong, but it's not what I meant for it to say. The Section 202 Housing for the Elderly program is in a state of major contention. This program builds and maintains affordable apartments for low-income seniors. Often those homes will come with supportive services so that seniors can live in their homes longer than maybe they could have otherwise. It was funded at $913 million last year. The House wants to bump that up to $950 million, which would be a boost. The Senate wants to boost it even more, up to $972 million. But the administration wants to completely eliminate it. So I have no idea what's going to happen with this. I would love to see it increase. There's never been enough of that to go around. But like I said before, there's been programs where Congress has approved the funding and the White House hasn't funded it. So even if the House and the Senate get their way in the bill, I don't know what would happen. And of course, full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer or anything. I'm just a researcher who's been looking into this stuff for a long time. So by no means is this any sort of legal analysis. It's not, but definitely have some concerns about what might be happening to Section 202. Now, the Community Services Block Grant is another one of those block grants that they give to the states. This one goes to community action agencies, and I love community action agencies. Their sole purpose is to help reduce and eliminate poverty in communities all over the country. And so they use this money to help people pay their rent, pay their utilities, get job training, transportation help, and more. These are very powerful grants. And the House wants to bump it up by $5 million, which would be great, but the White House wants to eliminate it. So hopefully we'll see it increased. I think that would be great, but we just don't know. So let's look at what happens next, because I try really hard not to just leave you guys with terrible news. So the NCOA says that only 3 of the 12 annual appropriations bills have been passed in either the House or the Senate as of September 10th. They say that it's likely that the government will need to pass another continuing resolution in order to keep the government open, which really isn't surprising because I feel like we've kind of just been doing that. They haven't really done a budget. They just kind of keep kicking the can down the road because nobody can agree on anything. This is a quote from NCOA that says, at the moment, congressional leadership and the White House appear to be negotiating a plan to avoid that outcome, which would be great. Nobody wants to see the government shut down. That gets complicated really fast. And Politico said that it looks like they're working on a short-term bill that would last through November 20th, which is still better than September 30th. But really, it would be nice to go more than a couple of months without this fear-mongering cycle that it feels like we're perpetually in. So I know that these updates can feel overwhelming, and I know that this is scary stuff. I'm worried too, and I'm worried about you guys. And I want you to know that you're not alone. There are a lot of advocacy groups and community organizations and people that are fighting to protect these services. And they're going to keep fighting, and you can help them if you reach out to your senators and your representatives and make your voice heard. You can reach out to them and tell them what these programs mean to you and what an impact they've had on your life or your community. And even though it can feel very futile, right? Like it can feel kind of pointless. It's not. It matters. Making your voice heard and working, especially alongside those organizations that are fighting for these programs, it makes a difference. And like, we started this video going over the programs that seem to be safe. So as we wrap up here, please don't, I hope you don't leave with the message that it's all bad news. There is some bad news, but hopefully there's some silver lining in there somewhere. And of course, if you receive Medicare, Chapter is a great resource. They can help you make sure you're getting the best benefits for you. They can look at, who you go see, what medications you need, and make sure that you're getting the best benefits out of your Medicare as well. So with all of that in mind, I am going to jump into the chat here and try to answer some of your questions. I am going to try to stay away from anything that is too political or controversial, just because I don't like fighting in our chat. So anyway, there's that. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh my goodness, Lisa, I did not see this. Thank you so much. That is extremely helpful, and I really appreciate that support. It helps support our team. That is wonderful. Thank you. Richard says they should cut corporate welfare, and oh, you are not wrong. I don't know if any of you have read the book Poverty by America, but I read it a couple of years ago, and it was incredibly eye-opening to see just how much the wealthy actually benefit from government funding compared to the average people. Like, we get a lot of vilification, I think, of low-income people, but that's just because corporate welfare isn't more visible. So, all right, Sheila's asking if I've heard about this AARP program. I have not heard of that one, but I will definitely go look into that. I've been meaning to put together a video on resources that will help seniors connect with work and volunteer opportunities, because I know that with the new changes we're seeing rolled out to all these different programs, that we're going to need that kind of a resource guide. Let's see. Oh, Lisa, thank you so much for joining our channel memberships. This is super not required. I don't want anybody on the chat here to feel like you have to join the channel memberships, but it definitely helps support our team. And Stephanie does a really good job of putting free merch in there and all sorts of goodies and things. So that's awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Let's see, just trying to catch up here. Oh, that makes me so sad. I'm just here for the comments. As seniors have become the disposable generation, and that is heart-wrenching. I would never want anyone to feel that way. It's not okay. Yeah, so I think Love Pugs here is saying that LIHEAP is cut. Oh yeah, I would not afford it all. So there are other programs other than LIHEAP that can help with utilities. They are generally not very well advertised, because usually when you go in for utility assistance, they're going to apply for LIHEAP first, because it's going to be easier to get. You're going to get more funding, and then you can add whatever else you can get on top of that. Even if LIHEAP goes away, there should still be ways to get assistance with with utilities, and I will be looking into that. I'm kind of waiting for the dust to settle a little bit so that we know what we're actually working with, because right now there's a lot of talk about different things happening, but things don't seem to have been finalized, and it's very confusing. And I never want to come on here and give you information that is just going to make it worse. So I'm kind of waiting for the dust to settle on that, but there should still be resources that you can go to get help with utilities, just maybe not as easily or as much as we are used to through that LIHEAP program. If your friend's on disability, I wonder if getting SSI or something like that would be able to help um, with that workaround. I know sometimes having statements from doctors and things can work that out too, but I am definitely familiar with the process of not being able to afford to go to a doctor because you're on disability and then not having the documentation that you need. So I know that that's a circle too. If anyone is stuck in that, sorry, I'm just kind of rambling now, but if anybody is stuck in that situation where you can't get documentation from a doctor because you can't afford healthcare because you're disabled, but then you're not able to get your benefits because you don't have the doctor documentation. I do have a friend who's a doctor. She works in what's called DPC, and I had never heard of that before, but it's called direct primary care, and it's like a subscription service for healthcare. And I know a lot of people in our community have really benefited from going to that kind of a practice because they just pay one flat fee and then they can talk to their doctor and get what they need. So that might be something that might be helpful, hopefully. Yeah, so Amanda's talking about unemployment going up. That's one of the big concerns, and they've made it harder for states to get waivers on work requirements, even with unemployment, which is seems like a really scary thing to me. But hopefully something's going to work out. I try to be an optimist. I really do. I hate bringing you guys bad news. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I am trying to catch up on your conversation here, and I feel bad that you're watching me read all of this. Yeah, Ellen is saying if you're legally blind, you should be eligible for SSDI disability. Definitely apply for that. When you apply for SSDI, you should be automatically applied for SSI, and there's a presumptive benefit, I believe, for blindness as well. If you need help applying for SSDI, we do have a sponsor that can help with that. It's at lirlinks.com/SSDI, I think. And they might be able to assist you in fighting for those benefits. I know it's really hard to get disability on your own sometimes. Oh man. Devin says he's had 4 interviews in the last 4 months, and they all said they weren't hiring at all. I have noticed a weird trend of employers listing job listings and then not actually being hiring at the time. That doesn't make sense to me either. Just curious how many people are in our team. That is a great question. So we have me. Obviously, you guys probably know me best because I'm always here on the videos. We have Stephanie, who works really hard managing our social media, answering our emails, answering a lot of the comments that you guys leave. We also have Kat, who assists with comment moderation. We have a couple of other administrative assistants that work behind the scenes. And we have some contributors who write content periodically. They tend to be social workers and experts in their field and things like that. If you go to lowincomerelief.com/about, you can see pictures and details on all of our team members as well. So we try to make sure it's all very transparent for you guys. My background is in journalism. I'm not a lawyer or a social worker or anything like that. Yeah. Okay. Ellen says the commodity supplemental food program doesn't work. They ignore the food requirements. They really do. I know the quality of the food in that program is not great. And I do think that EBT is superior in a lot of ways because it does let people get what they need for their specific diets. That being said, I think the current commodity supplemental food program is better than what is being proposed to replace it, because I've heard a lot of people getting inedible food, and it just being a complete waste of funding and resources. So while imperfect, it might be better than the alternative. I don't know. Oh, yeah, this is a good point too. If you don't have a car, how are you going to go get to that job? We did do a video recently on transportation resources, and there are different organizations, including Lyft, that can help people get to and from work for the first couple of weeks until they kind of get more on their feet. I don't think the video we did got very many views. I think we I don't know, algorithm didn't like it or something, but if you go search on our channel, we have a video about how to get free transportation resources, and we also have a video about how to get a free car. Those programs are a bit limited, but they do exist and they are very helpful, so I do recommend that. Melly says, "Can I still try for LIHEAP?" And the answer is yes, absolutely, please do. You're the I am a big fan of always apply, right? The worst they can do is tell you no. If you go in to apply and they're like, hey, that shut down, well, that sucks. But maybe they can point you to something else that's still open and available that may be able to assist you, right? But if you don't apply or you make assumptions that you're not eligible, then you're not going to get that opportunity to be pointed in the right direction. So I always advocate applying if you think you're eligible for anything, because you never know where that's going to lead you. In the past, when we've had financial trouble, I found that applying for one thing would often lead me to another thing, would lead me to another thing. And it's a lot of hoops to jump through, but if you jump through them, you can get more help than you might have otherwise. Um, yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. I'm kind of a little bit rambly today, I think. Um, J. Paul says, what number is that? I think you're asking about the free Medicare help number on screen. I think that's the only number that we've mentioned here today. And it's written up there twice, but that's for Chapter Medicare. They are a sponsor of this channel, and they provide free one-on-one consultations to help you make sure you've got the best Medicare plan. They say that the calls take an average of about 20 minutes, and they save seniors an average of $1,100 a year. So strongly recommend reaching out to them if you are Medicare eligible. Now, it appears that I may have reached the end of the chat. I know sometimes there's a delay. I never want to leave when you guys are still asking questions, because I never want anyone to feel left out. So I am just going to sit here for a second and see if we have anything else come in. Okay, so is 202 the same or similar to Section 8? It is different. There's so many different little housing programs, and it's so confusing sometimes figuring out what is what. So Section 8 offers, rental assistance vouchers and things like that you go find a place that you want to rent, see if the landlord will take it. There's a big process in that. Section 202 provides specific housing for seniors who are at least 62 years old and people with disabilities. They often have supportive services built into the housing so that you can get extra support if you need it. And there's it's a separate program, but it is similar in that it provides more affordable housing and things like that. So hopefully that makes sense. I can do another video on it if you want. It's sometimes I feel like they intentionally make these programs more complicated than they need to be, but that's my personal belief. So I'm not saying that it's necessarily true. Let's see. Oof. Love Pugs is talking about cuts to public transit, and that is definitely a problem. That really makes it very difficult to navigate a lot of the different resources that are out there and get jobs and things. So Patrick is saying if you get a raise in SSDI, Medicare takes it. And that is true in a lot of cases. If you are dual eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid, meaning that you meet the income limits for Medicaid, you shouldn't necessarily see those increases in your Medicare costs, because Medicaid can help cover your out-of-pocket portion. So if you think there's a chance that you're Medicaid eligible, I would recommend that you apply for that. And I think that's something our sponsor chapter can help explain how all of that works and the different options and plans and things that are out there for that. But it definitely, and there's also, even if you don't get Medicaid, there's also other things like, I suddenly can't remember the names of any of them. Extra help, like QMB type programs that can help cover those costs as well. So definitely look into that, because I know those Medicare costs can be a killer. And I saw some information come my way about what they're thinking about doing with those Medicare premiums this year. And I try not to speculate, so I'm kind of waiting for further confirmation on that, but we'll see what happens. Let's see. Awesome. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here today, because I still have some other work I got to get done. But I am super grateful for all of you who took the time to be here on the chat with me today. You are wonderful. And of course, we'll continue updating you as this situation progresses and as other things move forward. That's our whole job here, is to make sure that you know what's going on so that you can be prepared, and to help you find other resources that you might not know about. So, if there's anything specific you'd like to have us cover in the future, just let me know. And in the meantime, I will be back tomorrow